One of the most inspiring brass banding organisations we've ever encountered has spent recent years raising a seriously impressive amount of money to allow it to move from its current out-of-town premises to a custom-built headquarters in the heart of its community, both literally and figuratively. But this project didn't appear out of thin air. It is the result of many years of dedication and focused effort to create an organisation fit for the magnificent building it is on the point of opening. To tell us how all of this has been achieved, we are pleased to welcome the Chairman of Amersham Band, Fred Harrison.
Well, good morning, everybody, thank you, Kenny, for that introduction. I must say I was a little bit surprised when I got the call a few months ago inviting us to come and present to Brass Band England's annual conference. We considered ourselves just to be a small community band, minding our own business, so it's a great pleasure to be able to come here and say a little bit about what we've been doing. Hopefully it will be helpful to other bands around the country. I'm going to tell you really a little case study of how the band has developed, but also I wanted to address the conference themes, which are about resilience and sustainability. I'll probably try and speak for about 45 minutes, tell you a little bit about what we set out to do, what we actually did, and what we have achieved and the lessons we've learnt. There'll be some time for questions at the end. And we're very happy really to share our experiences with other bands. Maybe there's some things that I will say here this morning which could be useful to other bands to have a think about. Before I started on the case study, I wanted to talk about an initial thought, really. And this is about Charles Darwin, the famous naturalist. He really developed the theory of evolution. And in his book, The Origin of the Species, he said this. He said, "It's not the strongest that survives, nor the most intelligent. It's the one that is most adaptable to change." Turns out this is applicable to nature, but it's also applies to governments, businesses, charities, and I think it applies to brass bands. Perhaps your band has got good reserves, a good financial position. Maybe you've got a wealthy sponsor or a benefactor who's very generous. Perhaps you have a hotshot conductor, some really key well-known players. Maybe you've got a trophy cabinet full of silverware. Maybe you've got all of these things, but none of that really guarantees that you will survive. And I think the latest developments in the last few months with coronavirus has shown really that there's more than those things are needed to ensure the sustainability of brass bands. So with that thought, let's move on to the case study. And I thought it would be appropriate to just say, where is Amersham? Maybe some of you know, maybe some of you don't. Amersham is a market town. It's in the Chiltern Hills, and it's just about halfway between London and Oxford. So we have the benefit of being close to London. We're actually right at the end of the Metropolitan line. And there are some benefits from that, and also a few disadvantages as well. So now to say a little bit about where we are today with our band. We are a community band. All the players in the band live locally, and we perform for local people. We've got around about 110 members. This is the situation before the lockdown occurred. And we've got we've got 4 bands to cover all ages and abilities. We have a teaching program that we call Brass Roots, which is, again, for all ages. There's a lot of young people in that, but also some older people. And we're in the process of constructing our own band room, which Kenny mentioned. We have very good community support, well-attended concerts, We're running maybe 35 or so events per annum when you add them all up. Not this year, but last year, 35. And we're in a financially sound situation. At least I think our treasurer would agree. We have some money in the bank. So overall, we're in a fairly strong position, I think. However, it wasn't always like this. And I want to talk a little bit about where we started. Around about 12 years ago, by the way, I joined the band maybe 15 years or so ago. I didn't come from a traditional brass band background, but I joined when my daughter started. Maybe 12 years ago, we had a number of weaknesses. We had a shortage of players. Maybe there were 15 or so players in the band and a few guests. We'd had a succession of musical directors. Some lasted only a few months, others lasted longer. We had fairly inconsistent performances at contests. We were in the fourth section. Sometimes we got good results, sometimes not so good. We had a fairly familiar, overused repertoire. Each summer we'd get out our summer program pads, shuffle the pieces around a bit, but mostly play the same pieces. But on the upside, we had the sole use of a rehearsal space, Methodist Church Hall, which only we use, which meant that we could put all our instruments and equipment and lay out and keep it there without having to pack up after every rehearsal. We had friendly people in the band. I'm sure many bands are like this. We had an enthusiastic committee. And we also had a small training band, which again was not just for young people, but for all ages. We also thought about what the opportunities were. And actually, there was quite a strong latent demand in the area. For various historical and structural reasons, the local music centre was not particularly strong on brass. And there was a fairly low level of brass playing in some of the schools. There was one school we asked, they had, I think this was a junior school, they had about 200 children in the school. I think only 11 or 12 of them were actually learning a musical instrument, and none of those were learning brass instruments. So we realised there was an opportunity, really. Also, a little bit later, there was a development of the band time teaching programme, which is a programme that goes into schools, and basically it's a whole class teaching method, and which runs for about a year. But then after that, what happens to those children who may want to continue to play in a band or just learn a brass instrument? So we recognised this was an opportunity to recruit younger members. We also had a potential to meet the demand because our band could provide for a range of different standards of players. We had players perhaps only at an intermediate level, and we had some stronger players too, so we could accommodate quite a few different levels of player. And our training band, although it was small, was well supported, and we had good capacity to grow. From a financial point of view, I'm sure this is the same for most bands, that there's a very high proportion of fixed costs. So basically, you have the costs of your musical director, hiring your rehearsal premises, insurance costs. All of these costs are the same regardless of how many people you have in the band. So if you can increase the number of people in the band, then that increased membership and subscriptions goes straight to the bottom line. So we thought about this in terms of a circle of growth. If we could get a broader reach into the community, we could attract more members. And more members would bring their friends, relatives, neighbours and so on to the concerts, so we'd get bigger audiences, and that in turn would provide us with more revenue, so we could put on more activities as well as concerts. We could run workshops and so on, and that then turns around into the broader community reach. So it's a spiral really of growth, and all of this is based on the local community. So in 2013, we got the committee together, and we spent some time developing a new strategy. This is actually, I think if you see the slide, this is a little booklet we produced. And it talked about our vision and mission, tried to be clear about what the band is actually for. And we had a number of aims. And these aims that I've got on the slide here are actually the ones that are written in that booklet. We wanted to strengthen the links to the community. We wanted to recruit young people. We needed to find a new rehearsal premises because the existing one was too small. We wanted to build relationships with schools and music professionals and improve our communications, in particular the use of social media. So we took some initial steps, which were to ensure buy-in across the band. We had some discussions within the band membership about this. We started a development fund, got a small grant from our local council for money that we could put into developing the band, and we registered as a charity, and I'm sure many bands have done this. So having set out the strategy, we then developed an action plan. And I'd have to say this is really learning as we went along. We didn't have any particular skills or abilities. We thought, well, these are things we want to do. How do we go about it? So engaging with our community, this really was, I think, the fundamental thing that helped us move forward. We were relatively unknown. I can remember going along to our local Tesco's at Christmas, playing in a small group, playing the carols, you know, as you do. And we'd have people come up to us and say, oh, we didn't know Amersham had a band. Although obviously we played at various local events, we were relatively unknown, it turned out. So we spent some time trying to build up links in the community. We approached the town and district councillors to try and develop a relationship with them and explain who we were and what we were doing. We took a presentation to quite a lot of local societies. I was amazed about how many local societies there are in a town like Amersham, dozens. So we would go out and we would talk about our activities. We made an effort to support civic events, so things like Heritage Day, Remembrance Sunday, the Carol concert in the town. We perform in the Memorial Gardens in Amersham twice a year. We do St George's Day Parade, the Carnival. Many of these things we actually did free. We just decided that we needed to be in the community and hopefully people would be able to see the band and start to understand how we were contributing to the community. We had a program of outreach to schools. I'm going to talk a little bit about that later, but this was, for example, going into local schools with a small team of people to do a little presentation about brass instruments and perhaps play a little bit and allow some of the children to have a go. We started up a series of concerts which we called a Music Fest. It was an annual concert that we held in October each year. And we always did this in partnership with another local community group, a choir or a theatre group or something like this, or a school. And this meant that actually we were able to get the visibility of the band more broad across the community, and also had some other benefits. And I'm going to come back to that in a few minutes as well. Unfortunately, our president died during this period, and so we needed to find a new president. And we wanted to try and find someone in the community who would help us with our aims. We were very fortunate. We asked a local dignitary, Countess Howe, to act as our president, and she agreed. She actually used to teach music, and her two daughters, who are grown up, are music professionals, so that was good. But subsequently, because she's very active in charity aspects, she subsequently became chairman of the local community foundation, so that was also very helpful, and it's really good to have connections across the community. We started a fairly active press and social media campaign, making sure we were providing information about the band's activities in all the sorts of press we could find, local radio, and of course on Twitter, Facebook, and so on. We also had someone in the band who was a graphic designer. She produced a new logo for us, and we got some new branded uniform, a sort of casual uniform, to help people understand who we were. So that was a major part of our strategy, was to engage with the community. We also found we had a hidden asset, and I'm sure many bands have this, which was our heritage. The band actually, I think, was first records of the band was something like 1843, so over 175 years ago. before the age of photography, but we found this photograph of the band in 1891, and one of the band members did a lot of research on the history of the band, working with the local museum, found out who all these gentlemen were, what instruments they played, what they did for work, where they lived, what happened to them in the Great War, how their families continued with the band afterwards. So we had a lot of information, social history really, about the band, and we produced a presentation which we took around to people who were interested, all the local societies and so on. This became hugely popular. In fact, I think at one time we were getting more requests for the history presentation than for the band to play. So this was another way in which we're able to engage with the community. There are many people, particularly older people in the community, who are very interested in historical aspects. So if you do have in your band, if you do have a long heritage, then it's worth thinking about how you can exploit that. The next thing I wanted to talk about was recruiting young people. This was another part of our strategy, and we spent some time engaging with schools. As I mentioned before, we had a small team of people who did some demonstrations at school assemblies. We piloted a scheme for doing after-school group teaching. This slide shows a little picture of some brass lessons that we did at Woodside School in Amersham. We took groups of 10 children, provided them with instruments and gave them a few lessons, and then they're able to perform in the end-of-school concert. And this was a very good way, really, of getting an introduction into schools and showing who we were and, you know, how brass instruments could be picked up and whether they would like to join our Brass Roots program, for example. Our musical director, Paul Fisher, was working in the local music service. That's all very helpful because, of course, he's finding young people who are already playing instruments and was able to introduce them to the band. And then we did a number of joint concerts with school choirs, including concerts in the school premises. So we're really trying to make sure that the community and the schools in the community were aware of who we were and what we did. As well as the schools, we had a number of other things we did. We had information on our website for recruiting people, and we took a little try an instrument stall around for the carnival in Amersham, and also I think we had other events where we'd sort of have the P-bones and the vuvuzelas and proper instruments as well, and we'd encourage people to have a go. We produced flyers, of course, so people could take information away. And we had a number of open workshops, which were free of charge, where we got professional musicians to come and give a little tutorial on playing an instrument for beginners and for intermediate players. And they were quite well supported. And we had quite a few people who followed up and joined the band after attending one of those workshops. Another theme was about our concert programs and partnerships. We really needed to attract a broader audience. So we set about evolving our repertoire. Instead of playing the same things, we would have a constantly evolving repertoire. Our musical director was sort of key to this in finding new things we could play, new pieces of music, new genres of music as well. So we're talking about jazz and classical and big band. So we really tried to expand our repertoire so we were attractive to a broader audience. We set about having concert partnerships with local music groups. I did mention this before, this music fest, where we would host a concert in the local theatre, get school choirs to join us on stage, get sort of other choirs, choruses. We have an a cappella, ladies a cappella chorus, which is quite famous, who joined us in a concert. So really trying to broaden out, because obviously if you have other types of music groups, then they bring their own audience with them to your concert, and you're spreading the word about brass banding and the sort of music that brass bands play. We also wanted to perform at some new venues. We didn't just stick to Amersham. We tended just to perform in one or two local churches, but we went out to other larger premises. So we have a big theatre in High Wycombe. We played at the Barbara Ollie Hall in Chorley Wood, We went to Berkhamsted. And we also partnered with some other top-level bands. We had a couple of concerts with Brighouse and Rastrick, and also another concert with Foden's. And obviously the big-name bands also bring in an audience. Another really successful thing is we started trying to get soloists from outside of the brass band world. So at our music fest, we tend to have a soloist. We had people like Georgina Jackson, Andy Greenwood, Mike Lovett, who's on the screen here, and Gordon Campbell. We're very lucky that both of those gentlemen actually live in the area. We invited them to become vice presidents of the band, and they were very pleased to become associated with the band, and they've been very useful in providing links for us. The result of all this was we had growing audience numbers. I think we would be disappointed, obviously, now that we have the lockdown. It's not a situation where we can run concerts, but we would have been disappointed if our major concerts didn't attract at least 250 in the audience. That was the sort of audience level we were getting. And at one event a few years ago, 300-seat theatre, we actually had to turn people away because we'd run out of seats. And although that has been successful for us, further innovation really is needed to try and make sure we're continuing to get broader audiences, new people coming to hear brass bands play. So we're continuing to work on that, and our musical director's got some brilliant ideas that we're going to start working on just as soon as we can get out playing again. So this next slide shows you what happened in terms of the band evolution through the various things we've been doing. Back in 1998, we had the Amersham Band, and we had our little training band. And then in 2014, we changed our training band into what we called Amersham Community Brass, which is a sort of band for all abilities, all ages, all abilities. We threw the door open and said, well, you know, if you want to come and play a brass instrument, come into the community band. That grew very rapidly. We had, I think, at one stage over 40 people in that band. And because it started growing, and because there was demand for brass teaching, we set up our Brass Roots program. And again, that became popular very quickly. So then we had the 3 bands in 2015. And then just at the beginning of this year, we started a new band, Amersham Concert Brass. Sadly, they were going to play at their first concert in the Amersham Festival of Music in April, I think, but sadly that was cancelled. So they've yet to actually perform as a group. Nevertheless, that's also well supported. So as I mentioned earlier, we have around about 110 players, rather, across the 4 bands we have there. And we're hoping we can continue to grow. The other thing about having these different bands is that we can meet quite a diversity of needs of different players. As you probably know, people come to band for all sorts of reasons. They're interested in music, they enjoy playing in a group, they enjoy the social contact, they want to learn and improve, they enjoy performing for others. Some of them are competitive and want to contest, and also it can be an escape from daily stress. So people come to band for different reasons, and so we've got bands really suitable for all sorts of people. You know, if you want to contest and play at the highest level, you can be in our top band in the championship level. If you just want to come along and have a blow with some others, you can be in the community band. So we have a sort of family of bands, but we've tried to make sure they're not separate, that it's all inclusive. And we have this so-called family ethos to the way we run our bands, so that we have all ages, abilities, we're all in one family. We have a lot of cross-band events. Whenever we're doing things, we try and make sure that our other bands can be involved, either as an audience, or we put on concerts with more than one of our bands at the same time. We have social events as well, and some of our fundraising events, of course, have been across the whole band. So I think as we've grown, we found that by having these different bands, we've been able to attract different sorts of people who come to banding for different reasons. So now I want to talk about our band room project. Kenny mentioned this at the beginning, and I thought I'd say a little bit about how we came to build our own rehearsal facility. Our church hall venue actually was too small for us. It's out of town, quite a long way out of town. There's no public transport there. And unfortunately, because of a reduction in the congregation, the church is really under notice of closure. So we knew that we had to do something about this. There were no suitable alternatives elsewhere. We had a long look about other premises we might be able to rent. So we eventually decided we would build a new purpose-designed rehearsal facility. And this was quite a bold step. A number of questions. How would we get a suitable site? And we wanted it to be in the town centre. What about planning consent? Amersham is in the green belt and there's a lot of restrictions on what you can do. How would we raise the money? And would the band be able to afford the running costs? So all of these were kind of questions that we didn't really know the answer to. We spent some time trying to get some support and expertise. We have obviously some volunteers in the band, but not necessarily any particular expertise. So we were able to get from our local community foundation 12 days of free consultant expertise. And we had 3 different consultants who worked with us. One of them helped us put together a business case. We had another one help us with a fundraising strategy and also analysis of funding sources. And that was really, really helpful because we didn't really have that sort of knowledge, and we were able to make a strong start once we'd had the support from these consultants. We also had to add a bit of capability into our team. We appointed a retired project manager as an additional trustee because obviously a building project is a major project and you need someone who knows what they're doing to make sure it's delivered. There's a lot of fundraising training and charity management workshops. These are available. Some of them are free. You can get advice and support and materials very easily from your local community foundation, and there's other organisations as well. So we spent some time trying to get training. Myself and our band manager went on a few courses and to various workshops and so on. And we also found a local architect who had experience of design of music centres, particularly I think he'd done a few for local schools. So I wanted to just talk about the overall rationale that we put together for fundraising. And I've got this quote from Wynton Marsalis. I'm sure I've taken this out of context, actually, but he says, "Those who play for applause, that's all they get." And I thought this was quite a sort of profound statement, really. If you're going to look for funding from the big funders, get a grant or something, they are basically not going to give you money for 30 people to do their hobby. They're probably not going to give you money just so you can go contesting and have a trophy cabinet full of silverware. So we use the consultants to try and help us understand why funders fund things. And really what we found out is not about what you do, but why you do it. And so we worked on a number of themes about why we do what we do as a brass band. One of them is social engagement. This is a very important area for a lot of funders at the moment. They want to see communities coming together. So people enjoy our performances and they come to our concerts. Music brings people together and it enables reduced social exclusion and isolation. Another theme is education. Participation in music is beneficial for young people. I think we know this. It's beneficial in many ways. Some of the skills that you need in order to play in a band, basic skills, and also things like cooperation with others, teamwork, resilience, various skills that young people can benefit from. And it's known that playing music gives improved educational attainment and character formation and can reduce mental ill health. These are not new things. I think there's been many studies on these. And I think if you look at things like the National Plan for Music, it explains, the benefits of music in the educational setting. And the third area was access for all. We wanted to be able to support disadvantaged people perhaps who have limited financial means. This means having accessible premises, one of the reasons we wanted to be in the town centre. Low-cost participation, and we have a bursary which supports people who are unable to or not able to afford the membership fees, or even not able to afford travelling to and from the rehearsal venue. And at the bottom here, this statement, music can inspire people to take action to change their lives. I think that's one of the fundamental things. And I think by creating this sort of matrix of reasons why we do what we do, we were then able to go to the major funders and say, we'd like some money for our project. So in terms of raising the funds, I think we haven't quite counted out the final cost of our project. We're probably talking not far short of £500,000. We've had a fundraising program running over perhaps 4 years now, and we've done a lot of grant applications. I've done these. I think we've done over 200. We've raised £250,000, perhaps just maybe a little bit more than that now, from grants. 35 successful grants, 15% success rate. This is pretty typical if you speak to experts on fundraising. You generally get maybe 10 or 15% success on grant applications. Most of our grant applications, successful grant applications, have been smallish sums, £2,000, £5,000, £10,000, from local funds. And it's actually the local funds who have a little bit more knowledge about the local area and the local needs, and maybe can see you doing something in the local community. So that's been perhaps where we've got a significant proportion of our grant funding. And we have got some grants from larger funders as well, but it's quite difficult to meet the requirements of the larger funders. They often have quite specific targets. And the other issue really with raising money for a band room is that it's capital, and a large number of funders are not keen on funding capital at the moment. Other areas of funding, we did a lot of fundraising activities and got some donations. £65,000, perhaps a little more than that now, came from that. We issued some bonds, which are basically unsecured loans to band members and their families. We got a lot of in-kind pledges. A local builder gave us the bricks. We got some various bits and pieces. We're having our toilets installed by someone who's doing that. So by going to local businesses, you can get support, and we can give them credit in terms of publicity about how they're helping us. Gift aid, of course, is an important thing to try and claim on all those charitable donations, and we probably still have around about 25,000 to raise to complete the whole project. So I'm going to show you a little video now that we produced. It's an appeal video. I think this is the second one we did. We did one right at the beginning of the project, and then around about this time last year, we did another video. We asked a student at the local college who was studying media studies to put together the video for us, and we paid her a small sum of money. And so this video is the video of us actually on the piece of land that we'd got a lease on before we started the building. And anyway, if they can run the video now, I think it speaks for itself. Hello, I'm Fred, Chairman of Amersham Band, and we'd like to give you an update on our band room project. We're building a brand new musical facility in the heart of the town. It's designed to be a new home for the band, and it will also serve as a centre for music and other community activities. I'm standing here on the site of the new building, and you can see that we've already been clearing the land and building a driveway. The next step will be to put up the building, and we're busy raising funds for this.
Hi there, I'm Paul Fisher and I'm the Director of Music here at Amersham Band. We're so excited about the project we have going on here in the town. I'm thrilled to get this off the ground, our brilliant new band room. We're really looking forward to the possibilities that we're going to be able to give to the community of Amersham. Opportunities for young people to take on instruments, and even old people, maybe people that used to play back in the day and would like another opportunity to pick up an instrument once again. It's brilliant that we've been able to secure this wonderful site in the old town of Amersham, and we're so excited to make the most use of it, and we're really excited to welcome as many of you through the doors as we possibly can.
We started this band room project as our band is expanding. We now have around 100 members in 3 different bands and we've run out of space. So we negotiated a lease for this land and we asked an architect to design a new band room. We'll have a large rehearsal hall, smaller rooms for teaching, a music library, storage area and a small kitchen. There'll also be plenty of parking on the site.
Hi there, my name's Caroline and I'm the band manager. Hi Emily, can you tell me anything about our band room project?
Yeah, of course. So as a young person in the band, I'm really excited for this project because firstly it's going to give me a lot of space to grow, musical experience, as well as a lot more physical space. It's going to give me the opportunity to get involved in a lot more ensembles. It's a really accessible area and it's right in the heart of Amersham, which means that I'm going to get more involved with all the people and get them listening to all of us, which is a really great thing.
Hi Tom, do you want to tell me about what you enjoy about coming to band?
Well, I enjoy coming to band because it's something that I enjoy compared to school when it's not really that fun. I go with my mum, my dad, who are baritone players, and my brother, who's a trombone player.
Oh, that's right, because all your family play in the band.
Yeah, and my granny as well, who plays euphonium now, I think. I really enjoy playing percussion because you normally, if you're like on the bass drum or something, you have the bass line of the whole piece, you're keeping the whole band in rhythm. So at the timpanis, you sort of have the rolls and things, which is, it's just great fun, yeah.
I really enjoy it. For the last 3 years, we've been busy fundraising to build our band room. We've held a range of fundraising activities, such as sponsored walks, cycling, park runs, swimming, cake sales, car washing, and many, many more things. We've been very fortunate to get several both national grants and local grants. We're currently at 85% of our band room appeal, which is fantastic. But we need to raise more money to complete the project and the build. So that's where we're looking for your help with donations to our appeal so that we can build our band room.
So that's our appeal video, and we use that obviously locally. We put it on Facebook and so on, and actually these videos are quite useful for funders as well. Often a funder will ask if there's a video, and it sort of summarises the project, you know, in terms of being able to see rather than just reading a document. So, so I should show you what we built. This is our new band room. This picture was taken just a couple of weeks ago. It's not quite finished yet. We're hoping that the builders will hand over the keys maybe at the end of next week. But we still have a little bit of work to do inside. We've got to do the decorating and install various things, put down the flooring. And we also have quite a lot of work to do around the site because we've got to create the parking area. Nevertheless, I hope you'll agree it's a fine-looking band room. Got our logo on the end there, and obviously we're really, really proud to have been able to achieve this. In terms of the layout inside, we have a large band room itself, roughly 10 meters by 10 meters, 100 square meters. We've got storage for percussion. We've got a library, a staff room or kitchen. And we've got 2 smaller rooms, one for teaching and one for ensemble, or maybe both for teaching. So it's a modest building in terms of size, but nevertheless, it's really custom designed for what we need. A few people have asked us about how we're managing in terms of our finances and in terms of the band itself. I thought I'd just put a couple of slides up to show you really how we've structured this. In terms of the finances, we've got our normal band operations. I guess all bands have these. You know, you have income from subscriptions and performance fees, event income, And then your costs are band room rent, musical director costs, insurance, running costs, and so on. So that's our normal day-to-day operation, and that's run as a separate account. We have unrestricted a current account for that, and also we have a bursary fund which is restricted and which we've had grants to put into. And then the band room itself is run separately. It was important when getting grants. A lot of grant givers will say, well, we're giving you this money, but we want you to put it only to the band room. It's restricted, in other words, into what you can spend it on. So it is set up a separate bank account for that. And the band room has income from rent that the band will pay to its own band room, and also third-party rent, because we'll be renting this hall out to other community groups. And then, of course, we've got to meet the running costs, insurance, loan repayment, maintenance. And again, this account also has unrestricted funds, which are basically the day-to-day running costs, and the restricted funds, which are the capital costs, which are providing for, obviously, the building and any further developments we do to it. So that's the financial structure. And then in terms of the management structure, we have the trustees. I'm one of the trustees myself. We have 4 trustees in total. And it's a bit like the financial structure. We have, obviously, the band committee, with our 4 bands, each of which has got a musical director and each of which has got a band manager, and the band manager is looking after membership issues, event planning and so on for each of their bands. And then we have a band room committee. This is separate to the band committee and includes people from the community. So it's not just band members, we've got other people on there. And we haven't got a band manager at the moment, band room manager at the moment. We're going to recruit someone to take that role just as soon as we get the band room open. Yeah, so this is the management structure we've got. So now just spend a bit of time on the lessons we've learnt. Three areas I wanted to cover really was working with young people, the importance of the community, and setting out a bold plan. In terms of working with young people, this slide shows our brass roots group, a couple of different views. We couldn't get them all in one shot, but as you can see, lots of young people playing brass instruments, and we're quite proud of this. I think the brass roots program typically has 25 or more people in it, nearly all of them young. You'll spot a few adults in those photographs, but nearly everyone in there is a young person. And there's a few things we've learnt about working with young people. You really need to engage and enthuse young people. You've got to make it fun. When someone walks through the door, they probably have some nervousness about that. What will they expect and so on. So make sure everyone has a really good welcome. Anyone who comes in through our band room door is made to feel welcome. If they can't even play a note, they're still welcome. We'll find them a chair and an instrument and off they go. Share your passion for music. We're very fortunate in having, actually we've got 3 musical directors now who are really passionate about music, and they are actually teachers as well, so they know about working with young people. Short sessions are important, and keep everyone busy. If you spend a lot of time maybe trying to get the trombones to play something and not pay attention to the cornets, next time you turn around and look, you'll find that the back row have dismantled all their instruments, or they've lost their mouthpieces or something. So you need to keep everyone busy all the time. And we found with young people as well, have a break with refreshments. You need to provide lots of biscuits and squash. There are, of course, administrative aspects when working with young people. I think Brass Band England have done a fantastic job really supporting bands with this, but you have to have very good membership records. You obviously need to pay attention to safeguarding and the DBS. You need to deal with the issue of photographs and permission to use photographs and permission to put things on social media. You need a social media policy because children can get up to all sorts of things on social media. You need to deal with child performance licensing if you're out doing concerts, risk assessment. And no small task is dealing with parents. Anyone who works in a school will know that. It can be almost more difficult to deal with the parents than with the children. But on the real upside of working with young people, what we found is they do bring a new energy into a band environment, and they really have transformed our band family. So talking about a community, I think the community matters now more than ever with the situation we're in. We have a big contribution to the community as brass bands. We have a social contribution, bringing people together. That's really important in these days of the internet age, where people are just staying in their homes and playing games or on the internet. So bringing people together to make music is actually a good social activity. Education is important, music skills and life skills. And of course, we also contribute in terms of culture and heritage. And the investment in community is repaid. We have been amazed by the donations and support we've had from local people. I suppose Amersham is a relatively wealthy area, but it's just been really amazing, the generosity of local people in supporting our project. You also get concert audiences and event bookings. We're at the stage where we were turning down event bookings last year simply because we didn't have the capacity to do them all. You get new members, and of course you get networking across the community with all sorts of other benefits that brings. So really, if you have a strong engagement in the local community, that leads to sustainability, and I think Alex will be talking a little bit more about that in his presentation. And then the final thing, learning point, is about thinking bold and getting help. When we started this, we didn't really have necessarily the confidence to say, well, could we really deliver this project? But we did have a strong vision, and we set out a bold plan. And this really motivated the organisation. We had such a buzz, really, within the band, and then it developed across the community about what we were doing, which really helps you gain the confidence to say you can deliver it. And there is also plenty of good help available. You have resources within the band membership. It's quite surprising sometimes when you ask your members what skills they have. You'll find you've got plumbers and visual arts people and all sorts of people in your band who can help you. The local community foundation is a great source of help and advice and funds. Brass Band in England, of course, provides support. And there are a lot of charity support organisations as well who can help you. And of course, there's networking with other bands. We talked to a number of other bands who'd perhaps done similar things in the past, and we were able to get a lot of advice and experience of what to do and perhaps what not to do. And I think the result of that is if you build something, have a bold plan, people will come. There is a strong demand for learning and playing. We've had so many inquiries, and as the building's gone up, people are getting more and more interested. So I think you can afford to be bold. There is help there, and I think you know, our experience is that you can succeed. So just to finish off, I want to just look forward for a minute and make some general observations. The next steps for us is to open our new band room. We're hoping to get in there before Christmas with some rehearsals. Not quite sure what they'll be like, but we do actually have space for 28 people and the musical director, all sitting with a 2-metre social distance. So I'm not quite sure what the band layout will look like, but we can actually get in there. We're going to start a teaching academy in the new year. We have had plans to launch a big band, you know, to include saxophones and a rhythm section and so on. We have a band leader who's very keen to get that going, and as soon as we can get past these restrictions with the virus, we'll be launching a big band. We've also discussed forming a youth band, which might be on a project basis rather than a regular rehearsal basis, and some other new ensembles. And as I mentioned earlier, our musical directors have been working on some really interesting new concert and performance partnerships. As a conservative estimate, when I was putting together the proposals for grants and so on, we worked out we could probably attract at least another 250 new people into the band over the next 5 years, 50 a year. I actually think now that's probably rather modest, and we may be able to do better than that. So I just wanted to talk about sustainability and resilience, which is, of course, the theme for the conference. I've identified here 6 cornerstones really for achieving sustainability and resilience, which I've already spoken about, but to summarise, that's wide reach across the community, having innovative and accessible performances, including performances that might be for free, entertaining and bringing people together, music making that's inclusive for all, music education for young people, and provision for the disadvantaged. And basically with those things, that leads to support in the local community and growth and scale, with the results that we have sustainability and resilience. More general thoughts about the future. I think this virus and the restrictions associated with it has been a real wake-up call for brass bands. I know a lot of people are asking, when can we get back to rehearsing? Well, of course, that's important to do. But I think another important thing is to say, what can we do that is new? And there are some great opportunities out there. There are a lot of young people who want a fresh start. They've been off school, they're just getting back into school. They would love the opportunity to be part of a brass band or a music activity. And it provides them with a new social and educational setting. I think during this period as well, communities have come together. We've seen brass players who have been playing at VE Day with the Last Post and so on. They've been going out every week for the NHS clap and playing. And communities have come together during this period. So I think the question is, can brass bands build on that and build up a feel-good factor? And I think it's also clear that something of a vacuum has developed in the arts area, particularly with music. And I think brass bands can play a part in regeneration of that. We have the benefit, really, that we can play our music outdoors in all weathers. Not all music can be played like that. So even with the restrictions, I think brass bands have the opportunity to start to regenerate arts in our community. So my final slide really summarises by saying that our future depends on creating more value in our local communities. So back to the conference themes, I believe that sustainability comes through deep roots in the community, not via external financial support. And resilience comes through scale and the ability to change. So thank you very much. I'm very happy to take some questions. I think Sarah is here and will be perhaps acting as a moderator. So if you have questions, she'll relay them to me and then we'll try and see if we can answer some questions for you. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Fred. That was a completely inspirational presentation, and we've got lots of questions on the Facebook page, which is brilliant, but also just lots and lots of comments just passing on how inspirational they feel that this is, and how that, I think, judging from the comments here, you're going to get a lot of people getting in touch to ask more and to see what they can do. So the first question is from Jane, and she says, I know you yourself and Paul are very, very enthusiastic. Was that the same for the whole committee, and what did you have to do to drive them to get them there?
Okay, well, thank you, Jane. But just before I answer that, I would have to say I'm very happy to take questions by email afterwards, or however you want to approach the band. That we find. You can go to our website and use the contact us and just get in touch, ask your question. I'll be very happy to try and help answer that after the event. But to take Jane's point, actually, the committee, well, I think we're on board more or less from the beginning. It's a pretty close set of people, actually, and we have had some changes in the committee over the years, but we know each other well. Obviously, there are some differences of opinion, inevitably, but once we started drawing out the vision, I think people were able to see what could potentially be achieved, and this really then gathered a huge momentum. We had some discussions about money, whether we really could possibly raise that sum of money. We had some discussions about whether we could take on a loan or not. So all these things, but actually when you look at the end goal and the vision of what you're trying to achieve, I think people line up behind that fairly quickly, and you can usually overcome those issues that might occur in terms of the detail of how you get there.
Fantastic, thank you. Another brilliant question from Jonathan. How do you strike a balance to ensure you you don't work in competition with school music and other music services, but work with them?
Yes, that's a good question, actually. And we right at the beginning had some meetings with the County Music Service and talked to them about what we were doing. They recognised that our project was complementary rather than competitive. And we've also, in terms of working with the schools, tried hard to do things which complement what the local music service does rather than compete directly with it. I think in some respects we were a little bit fortunate in the sense that the local music service wasn't particularly strong on brass, so they saw our project as a way of actually being able to do more rather than take away things they were doing. So that didn't really become a problem. I think we found that we were basically all aimed at the same objective, which was to encourage children to take up music.
Another question from Tony. Any ideas on putting together a leadership team? What is needed, what works well, and what not to do?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. I think that doesn't apply just to brass bands, does it? But yes, it's difficult, isn't it, really? I mean, we work in the voluntary sector, so everybody on the committee is a volunteer. And I'm sure this isn't the case in many bands. When you have your AGM, you find that a couple of people have left the committee and you're looking for volunteers to join the committee, you know, and you have to try and twist people's arm to come and help. I think you obviously need different skills. You need someone who can look after the money. You need someone who can provide the leadership and chair and things, and you need someone who's good at dealing with the membership and people and so on. But yeah, I don't think it's been too hard to find the right people. And in practice, with a small organisation like a brass band, even if you've got as many as 100 or more members, everybody knows each other. And so I think putting together the leadership team, it more or less evolved rather than being planned. And those people who are interested in the band and taking the band forward and in making the project successful usually come forward to say, we can help.
Great. Another question from David. How do you measure success? Concerts, contest results, or anything else?
I think, just going back to my main theme, the success would be measured by some kind of acknowledgement in the community of what we are contributing. You can, of course, measure success by contests or concerts, but I go back to that Wynton Marsalis quote. You know, if you play for applause, that's all you get, which is fine. You know, that's good too. But I think we're looking for success at a much deeper level. It could be measured in terms of the number of participants in the band. It could be measured by other means, but I think ultimately you're talking about the community really being embedded in the community and the community loving what the band is doing.
And we've got one final question from James. What proportion of the overall input was existing resource within the band compared with outside input? I think this is specifically in terms of the funding for the band room, I believe.
The funding for the band room. I think when we started, this project, we probably had something like £5,000 in the bank. So all the rest of the money we have managed to get through grants or fundraising, whatever, donations. So we didn't start with anything really, not financially. We were very lucky. We got a couple of early grants before we had our planning permission, and that was one of the issues. If you haven't got planning permission, then very few people will give you money because the project is at risk until you've got the planning permission. But once we had the lease for the land and the planning permission, then we were able to raise money. But a couple of local organisations gave us grants and took the risk, and we're very grateful for that.
And one final question from me. What happened to make you decide this project wasn't just a dream, but was something that you could actually achieve?
Yes, that's a good question. I think it was probably, once we started, the enthusiasm of people within the band and our musical director to make it happen. And as I mentioned, a buzz started to be created in the band, and we thought we could do this. It was not just a vision, it was achievable.
Brilliant. Thanks so much again, Fred, for the absolutely wonderful presentation and for being with us here today.